That right there was Sick Vic versus Unknown Fleet. Dope track that was yet another track featured on that mixtape volume 17 off the DJ Efn. Folks, description box, you could get like the exact spelling and all that. But if you want to peep that whole mixtape, go on Mixcloud. I'll have a link for that as well. Bro, all right, let's get into this, bro, because Sick Vic versus Unknown Fleet. Obviously, you know some of them brothers.
Yeah, of course.
And how was that, if you remember at all? Because it was a long time ago.
No, I remember.
How was that selected for that mixtape?
They made it, I mean, according to them, they made it specifically for my mixtape. And the ill shit is they gave me a dub plate, which I still have somewhere. They made a dub plate of it and gave it to me.
Wow.
Yeah, and the thing is that whole crew, they're legendary Miami. They're legendary Kendall. They stem from the whole Last Straws crew, which, so growing up, those guys to me were already doing it locally, and those are the type of guys that I was looking up to, and then to full circle, and now I'm a part of the movement too, and I'm helping them as well, was super dope to me. But Be Dope, going to all the early parties before Crazy Hood is really doing anything, we're seeing Be Dope battle and perform, and Last Straws perform, and all these guys, and Vic, he was always around, even like just our end of Kendall and our like crew of people. So then it was just like, I don't know if that's how we all meshed up, but it was Kendall. So like eventually all roads led to like one place where we all just linked up and we just got to working. And that was one of the effects of that, where they made that record and they made a dub plate and they gave it to me. And that was one of many. Like we did a lot of different things together. We did shows together, events, clubs, mixtape appearances, a lot.
Well, that track actually features a young fly guy, which I wasn't aware of until I had Be Dope on one of my prior episodes, and then we were chopping it up about other stuff, and that track came up, and he's just like, yeah, Fly Guy, like that was a young Fly Guy is on there. Fly Guy is very much doing his thing as an MC and as a DJ, out there really grinding.
Going back to Crazy Good, he had a clothing line that I had in my store, that he came as a young dude, him and his homie, I forget his homie's name, and they did a whole presentation. It was like a school project where they had to like launch a clothing brand, or that's what they picked to do, and they brought it to me and I put it on consignment in the store, and later on, when he was already Fly Guy, he kind of reminded me of it, and I just knew him eventually as Simeon's brother.
Yeah.
Who's Sim, and then, Simeon's older brother was editor of The Source. So that's a crazy, at the peak of The Source magazine, he was the senior editor of The Source.
In its heyday.
Yeah, and it's super heyday. So it's like
Pre-Benzino Castro takeover.
Yeah, dude. So there's a lot, it's a lot of cool little interesting, like, fun facts and all these people and backgrounds and family ties and stuff like that.
Last Straws had a resurgence with, like, Chopped Herring Records and Dope Folks Records. These are labels that look for, like, real underground 90s hip-hop, and they had a resurgence again with putting out their vinyl again. I think they did it through Dope Folks.
Yeah, I get approached all the time by companies overseas. They've hit me they want like unreleased Alliance tracks, which we really don't have too many unreleased anything. But it's interesting. I noticed early on that even more so Germany, there was like this real affinity for like Miami underground hip hop. And there was dudes that were hitting me up from Germany like, yo, can you send me, like, they would like knew the tracks I put on my mixtape. Can you send me a copy, or can you put me in touch with the artist? And there's people that hit me up about Mike Rippa's shit. They're like, yo, if you got these records, I'll buy them for like $500 a pop. And I'm like, yo, I'm not gonna sell it, but it's dope that people really want it like that,
I think people look for Miami underground hip hop right now because they think it's so like this existed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, finding this type of hip hop from New York is nothing new.
Right.
Finding it from Miami, to a lot of people, they never thought this existed.
But remember, I'm saying this is going back to the affinity happened already. The people were already into it. Going back to like at least the late 90s, people were hitting me up about underground Miami hip hop shit. Yeah.
Even back then.
Yeah. There was dudes in Germany putting out mixtapes of mostly all Miami stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, bro.
I wish I could get my hands on it, and I wish I could get in contact with those dudes.
Man. There was one vinyl that like we ended up talking about online through Facebook or whatever. It was the collab vinyl.
The collab. I was confusing what you guys were talking about. I was thinking of the collab. Yep.
Which had After Midnight by Be Dope on it, and it also had an Alliance track on that. On that
Elements of Evil that had Stats. I was gonna manage Stats. Stats was originally from the whole, Sick Vic Fleet, Last Straws, that whole crew. I don't know what his name was before Stats. Can't think of it off the top, but he was the Spanish dude in the crew, and I was gonna manage him and everything, and it just never panned out. But he's on that record.
What's up with you going into that realm of managing? Because you've gotten into managing Recognize and doing a good job there. Like, what made you want to go there and take that route?
Well, that was the first thing that I did as Crazy Hood in a sense, because it was like the easiest thing to kind of get into. I mean, I personally wasn't really rapping, and I wasn't DJing yet.
You're more of an instigator on tracks.
Yeah. I rapped a couple times.
Like the first track demonstrate.
I have some lyrics on some of these tracks, but you know, the first thing I did right out of high school was I took some of my homies that rapped. My boy Big Drain, that people now know as the Drink Champs photographer. He could make beats, he could rhyme, he could sing, and then his homies, which was Poetic. He had a crew called Poetic Symbols. That's where the name The Alliance comes from. It was different people from different crews in our high school that we got different MCs. Put them in one group, and then
what high school was this?
Sunset.
Okay.
So, I put together a demo for a group we called Poetic Symbols, right? Well, that was the name of their crew, and then I shopped it at How Can I Be Down, and that was like the first thing I did, kind of like as a manager, producer, A&R type of person, and it was because it was like the easiest thing to do, you know, like we went to Miami-Dade, we signed up for fucking engineering classes, we got studio time that way. That's how we did half of our shit. I told everybody, even if you didn't want to really be an engineer, sign up so we can get that free studio time so we can get in the studio and create these fucking projects. Yeah, that's what we did. Get studio engineering and get the MIDI class, because the MIDI class, at the end, you got to go into the studio.
What Miami-Dade campus was this?
South. Yeah,
South
everything was bubbling in the South.
Okay. Yeah, the north one looks like a jail.
Yeah.
I think it still does look like a jail. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to get into this next joint because you mentioned something that's very much Miami and very much this was a part of that scene.